There exists a particular type of solitary individual who moves through the world entirely alone. And what I am about to tell you may disturb you. This is not the enlightened hermit. This is not the spiritual seeker who has transcended the need for shallow connection. This is something far more dangerous. And if you have encountered such a person, your instincts have likely whispered warnings you could not quite articulate. Listen closely to what is about to be revealed. The loner who keeps absolutely no friends is not choosing solitude. They are imprisoned within a psychological structure so rigid, so defended, that authentic human connection becomes impossible. And here is what most people do not realize. This imprisonment does not only affect them, it radiates outward, creating distortions in every relationship they touch. Decades of observation have revealed 4 unmistakable signs that distinguish the dangerous loner from the individuated soul. By the end of this, you will understand the difference, and you will never again confuse isolation with independence. Before we proceed, we must establish a crucial distinction, for there is nothing inherently pathological about solitude. Countless hours in quiet contemplation have been spent, and some of the most psychologically integrated individuals prefer limited social contact. The individuated person who chooses solitude does so from a position of wholeness. They have capacity for connection, but do not require constant external validation. They can be alone without being lonely. But the loner being warned about is something entirely different. This individual does not choose solitude from strength. They retreat into isolation because the psyche has become so fragmented, so filled with unintegrated shadow material, that genuine intimacy triggers profound terror. What appears as preference is actually compulsion. What looks like independence is actually imprisonment. The essential question then is not whether someone spends time alone, but rather what is the quality of their inner world when they are alone, and what happens when genuine connection is offered. Here is what has been observed. The dangerous loner carries within them a psychological architecture that can be termed the fortress of the abandoned self. Deep within the unconscious, often in early childhood, a wound occurred so profound that the psyche made a catastrophic decision. Connection equals annihilation. And so, layer by layer, defense by defense, they constructed an internal fortress designed to keep everyone out. But here is the paradox that most people miss. This fortress was not built to protect them. It was built to protect the world from the rage, the grief, the shadow material they have refused to integrate. And this, precisely this, is what makes them dangerous. Let the 4 unmistakable signs be shown. Watch carefully, for once you see these patterns, you will recognize them everywhere. The first and most revealing sign appears in how they speak about their isolation. Listen to their words carefully. You will hear elaborate explanations for why they are alone, but you will never, not once, hear them question their own role in this pattern. People are shallow. No one understands me. I am simply too evolved for ordinary friendship. Everyone eventually betrays you. Do you hear what is absent? There is no genuine inquiry. There is no wondering. What is it within me that makes connection impossible? There is only an endless narrative in which they are the perpetual victim of others' inadequacy. This is not the healthy boundaries of an individuated person. This is the tyranny of the unmourned self. Somewhere, long ago, their authentic self was rejected, abandoned, or wounded so deeply that the ego constructed an impenetrable defense. I do not need anyone because I am superior to the need itself. But here is what they cannot see. The rejection they claim to have transcended is the very rejection they now inflict upon every person who attempts to know them. They have become the abandoner, endlessly reenacting the original wound while remaining completely unconscious of the pattern. Such individuals have been encountered who have gone decades, entire lifetimes, without a single sustained friendship. And when you ask them why, they will provide you with a catalogue of others' failures, never their own. The mirror is always facing outward. The second sign is more subtle but equally disturbing. Watch how the dangerous loner engages with groups or social situations when they cannot avoid them. They do not participate. They observe. But this is not the gentle observation of the contemplative mind. This is not the naturalist studying behavior with curiosity and compassion. This is something colder. This is the observation of the predator studying prey, cataloging weakness, collecting ammunition for later use. This has been seen repeatedly. The dangerous loner will stand at the periphery of social gatherings, saying almost nothing, but their eyes are moving constantly. They are watching who says what, who reveals vulnerability, who makes mistakes. And later, in moments of conflict or when they feel threatened, this information will be weaponized with surgical precision. Remember when you said you were struggling with your marriage, and now you are giving me advice about relationships? You cannot even control your own drinking, and you are questioning my choices? Do you see the pattern? They collect observations not to understand, not to connect, but to defend the fortress. Every interaction is a potential threat, and so they arm themselves with knowledge while revealing nothing of themselves. What may shock you more is this: they experience their own behavior as virtuous. In their internal narrative, they are simply observant or intelligent or aware. They do not recognize that they have turned human interaction into a battlefield where connection is impossible because everyone is a potential enemy. The individuated person who observes does so with compassion. They see others' struggles and feel empathy. They witness vulnerability and respond with kindness. But the dangerous loner, they see only ammunition. They witness only weakness to be exploited if necessary. The third sign appears in the stories they tell about themselves. Listen carefully, for this is where the shadow reveals itself most completely. The dangerous loner constructs an elaborate mythology in which their isolation is not a failure, but a mark of superiority. They are not lonely. They are simply operating on a level others cannot comprehend. They do not lack friends. They have simply transcended the need for such primitive connection. I do not need people because I have my work. Most humans are barely conscious. Why would I waste time with them? I am content in ways others will never understand. But beneath this grandiose mythology lies the unbearable knowledge of the unloved self. Deep in the unconscious, they know they are alone, not by choice, but by incapacity. They know that connection has been offered and they have destroyed it. They know that people have reached out and they have driven them away. And this knowledge is so painful, so devastating to the ego, that the psyche performs an extraordinary act of inversion. The rejection becomes a choice. The incapacity becomes superiority. The wound becomes a crown. Individuals have been seen so imprisoned by this mythology that they literally cannot perceive reality accurately anymore. Someone will offer genuine friendship, genuine care, and they will interpret it as manipulation or weakness or need. They have become so identified with the mythology of the misunderstood genius that any evidence contradicting it must be destroyed. Here is how you distinguish this from genuine individuation. The truly individuated person may prefer solitude, yes, but they do not need to justify it constantly. They do not need to construct elaborate explanations for why they are superior. They simply live their truth quietly. And when connection is offered authentica, they can receive it without terror. But the dangerous loner, they are always explaining, always justifying, always constructing narratives that position themselves as above, beyond, separate. Because if they stop, even for a moment, the unbearable truth might break through. They are not chosen solitude. They are simply, heartbreakingly, alone. Now we arrive at the fourth and most disturbing sign. This is the sign that reveals the true danger of the friendless loner. Watch what happens when they experience crisis. When the fortress walls begin to crack and they can no longer sustain the isolation, they will suddenly, urgently reach out. And whoever responds will be pulled into what can only be described as a psychological feeding frenzy. The dangerous loner has spent so long refusing connection, refusing to develop the capacity for reciprocal relationship, that when they finally do reach out, they have no ability to regulate the exchange. They do not know how to receive support appropriately. They only know how to consume. This pattern has been witnessed countless times. Someone will go months, even years, maintaining absolute isolation. Then a crisis occurs, a health scare, a financial disaster, a moment when the defenses fail, and suddenly they are calling, texting, demanding immediate attention, immediate response, immediate salvation. The person who responds out of compassion or concern will find themselves utterly drained, because the dangerous loner does not want connection. They want extraction. They want you to fill the void they have created through decades of refusing intimacy. And they want it now completely, without any reciprocal offering of themselves. And here is the cruelest part. Once the crisis passes, once they have consumed what they needed to restore the fortress walls, they will disappear again. No gratitude, no acknowledgement, no sustained connection. You will be discarded as suddenly as you were summoned. And if you express hurt or confusion, you will be met with cold dismissal. I never asked you for anything. You chose to help me. That is not my responsibility. I did not realize you expected something in return. Do you see the pattern? In their internal world, they have done nothing wrong. They reached out in crisis. What was the person supposed to do? Refuse? But there is no recognition that relationship requires reciprocity. There is no understanding that connection is a sustained exchange, not a one-time extraction. This is perhaps the clearest sign that you are dealing not with a person who has chosen solitude from strength, but with someone whose psyche has become so fragmented that they can only relate to others as objects to be used and discarded. Now you may be wondering, what creates such a person? What transforms a human being into this isolated, defended, dangerous architecture? The answer in nearly every case encountered is this. They have refused the most essential work of the psyche. They have refused to face the shadow. Every human being carries within them aspects of the self that were deemed unacceptable in childhood. Perhaps it was rage. Perhaps it was neediness. Perhaps it was vulnerability itself. These qualities were rejected by parents, by society, by circumstance, and so they were pushed into the unconscious, into the shadow. The healthy response to this wound is shadow integration. We bring these rejected parts into consciousness, we examine them, we come to understand that our rage has reasons, that our neediness is human, that our vulnerability is not weakness, but the very foundation of connection. But the dangerous loner makes a different choice. Rather than integrate the shadow, they identify with it completely. They become the rage, they become the cold superiority, they become the defended fortress, and everyone else, everyone who still admits to human need and vulnerability, becomes the enemy. This is why they cannot maintain friendship, because friendship requires us to be seen, and to be seen, we must allow our shadow material to emerge in relationship. We must risk showing our neediness, our flaws, our humanity, and this, precisely this, is what the dangerous loner cannot tolerate. They have convinced themselves that if anyone sees the truth, the loneliness, the pain, the desperate need for connection they have denied, they will be destroyed. And so they destroy the connection first. They reject before they can be rejected. They abandon before they can be abandoned. And with each rejection, with each friendship they sabotage, the fortress grows stronger. The isolation deepens. The mythology becomes more elaborate, until they are so far removed from authentic human connection that they no longer remember what it feels like. Individuals have been seen reach the end of their lives in this state, alone, defended, still insisting they chose this path, still unable to recognize that they have spent an entire lifetime running from the very thing that could have healed them, being truly known by another human being. Now, perhaps you are hearing this and a terrible recognition is dawning. Perhaps you see yourself in these patterns. Perhaps you have realized that you are the dangerous loner, and this knowledge is almost unbearable. Listen carefully. This recognition is not condemnation, it is the beginning of liberation. The fact that you can see the pattern means the psyche is ready to change. The fact that you feel discomfort means some part of you still remembers that humans are not meant to live in such isolation. There is still, buried beneath all the defenses, a longing for connection. But honesty must be present about what comes next. The work is not simple. You cannot simply decide to be more social or make friends. The fortress was built for reasons, and until you understand those reasons, until you excavate the original wound and integrate the shadow material that has been defending it, the patterns will continue. You must ask yourself the questions you have been avoiding your entire life. What happened that made connection feel like annihilation? What part of myself did I exile to survive? What would it mean to be truly seen by another human being? What am I so terrified will be discovered? These are not comfortable questions. The answers will not come easily. You may need to seek analysis, to work with someone who can help you navigate the unconscious terrain where these wounds reside. But this can be said, on the other side of this work is something you may have forgotten exists: the possibility of genuine friendship, the experience of being known and not destroyed, the profound relief of allowing another person to witness your humanity and respond not with rejection but with compassion. You have spent so long believing that isolation is strength, but true strength is the courage to be vulnerable. True power is the capacity to need others and let them need you. True individuation is not separation from the collective, but conscious participation in it from a place of wholeness. The fortress you have built to protect yourself has become your prison, and only you can choose to dismantle it, stone by stone, defense by defense, until you are standing in your own truth, visible, vulnerable, and finally, free. So let this be the final word. If you have encountered the dangerous loner, the person who keeps absolutely no friends and wears their isolation like armor, proceed with caution. Do not attempt to save them unless they have done the work of recognizing their own patterns. Do not exhaust yourself trying to breach walls they have spent a lifetime constructing. But if you recognize yourself in these words, if you feel the uncomfortable recognition that you are this person, then know this: you are not beyond reach. The psyche that created these defenses also holds the capacity to dismantle them. But it requires the courage to face what you have been running from. It requires the willingness to feel the pain you have numbed. It requires the radical act of letting yourself be seen. The question is not whether you are worthy of connection. Every human being carries this worthiness simply by existing. The question is whether you are willing to do the work that makes connection possible. Somewhere beneath the fortress, beneath the mythology, beneath all the defenses, there is still the person you were before the wound. The person who wanted to be known, the person who longed for belonging. That person has not died. They have simply been waiting in the darkness for you to come back and retrieve them. And when you do, when you finally integrate all that you have exiled, you will discover something extraordinary. You will find that solitude and connection are not opposites, that you can be whole within yourself and still let others in, that independence and intimacy can coexist. This is the true individuation, not isolation masquerading as enlightenment, but wholeness that allows for genuine human relationship. The choice, as always, is yours.